Very good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Kath and I shall be going through today's presentation. We are on part 6 of our Herd Companion series. If you've missed any previously, we have got various links to them all. They're all clustered together on the NMR website, and I'll go through that at the very end. Just a couple of bits regarding the webinar itself. I always do the same kind of format here, so you might well be used to this if you've been in before. On the right hand side of your screen, you've got a control panel which allows you to ask a question. So you can actually type it into the box here. And I've got Claire Windsor on standby, so she's just checking those as we go through. We come to them at the end, but if she can help you with anything in the meantime, then she certainly will. Alternatively, if it's a bit wordy, then by all means just raise your hand. That's just the hand button on the control panel as well, and then that stays lit up so we can come to you at the end and you can ask your question directly if you like. And I am talking right now, so if you can't hear me, just check on your panel that we've got computer audio set, or phone call if you have dialed in. So there's 1 or 2 settings there just to check, but hopefully all is well. So let's go into Her Companion. Now we've covered a fair bit of it already with this series. And today, oh, that's lucky, look, we're unavailable from 3 o'clock. I shall have to make sure we finish. We've got plenty of time though. So today's topic is all about the cell counts. So we've covered a little bit, as I say, on your Swift cell checker, so looking at the individual cell counts from the latest recording and a few latest recording bits and pieces as well. So do refer back to the other webinars in the series for that. But I wanted to delve a bit deeper today and look at the production side, and specifically then the middle area here where we've got cell count overview. Now some of these have been around for a long time, so this is classic Herd Companion before we had our revamp a few years ago. So they are well-established reports and might be overlooked if you've only come across Herd Companion recently. So the first one is SCC Overview. So we're all about trends today and what's been happening with the herd over time and what different aspects actually mean. So in here we have a breakdown by milk recording date. So let's just have a little look at this table first. So you can see the latest recording and then the results of that recording as far as cell counts go. So one thing to note, we have got a threshold here of 200 and you can adjust that for this relevant page. So that will then update the table below. And you can see then the percentage of the herd over that threshold. So that one has crept up a little bit from previous months. How many cows that equates to. And then those cows that have a potential infection are classified into these 4 areas: new, first, repeat, and chronic. Now, if you're not sure what they mean, go into the definitions here and you can see lots of explanations on what everything means within these tables. And the crucial one I want to show you, actually I can make that full screen, there we go. Right at the bottom, we've got some lovely graphs that help explain exactly what we mean by a new case. So our threshold at 200, you can see here, this is just a very simple graph of the cell counts throughout the lactation. So a new case was below that threshold all the way through her lactation. Now she may not be that far in, she could be 2 or 3 recordings down the line, but it's suddenly something that's popped up and she was fine before. Whereas a first classification is the very first recording in her lactation that she's come in high. So these ones might be related to dry period origin mastitis or something happening with the fresh cow calving in. It could be 30 days in milk, of course, depending on when the recording falls related to the calving date. But those are your kind of early warnings, catch them quick and hopefully sort them out. A repeat one, as suggest, is repeated a high cell count. So not last month, she was fine, but some stage previously in her lactation, she's gone high. Again on that one. And then a chronic, so high this month and also high last month or last recording if it's not a monthly service that you're on. So that gives you an idea of those repeat offenders that we often see. There's some other definitions further down as well. So the reverse of these infected cows, anybody above that threshold, obviously are below the threshold, so they are recovered, they've got better, they were perfectly fine their first recording, and they've remained uninfected throughout. So that's what those mean. So if we go back to our graph here, or a grid, you can then see the proportion of the cows that fit into those categories. So it might be something that suddenly shoots up. If the chronic cows, we can see we've gradually picked up a little bit here. Firsts are absolutely fine, no first infections at all. So therefore, whatever we're doing to our fresh calving cows is working. And we can get a graph of this overall. So we've got graphs on this side and reports on this one. So reports are individual cows to identify, and the graphs is the herd trend. So let's look at cell count summary firstly, and then you can see where we're fitting for herd trends over time. So the latest recording here, so this is the April recording, we're into May, we haven't got one in May as yet. And this is over 2 years, so you've got a really good idea of what's been happening. So the red area is your chronic cows, and you've got the key there on the graph to help you. Percentage of cows in milk going down the side. So as a rule of thumb, we don't want to see any more than 10% chronic cows within the herd. We certainly had an area of interest here last summer, but that's been managed really well. Slightly creeping up here, so we might want to concentrate on those chronic cows a little bit more now. The yellow ones are the repeats, and they have shot up a little bit as well. The green is the first, so that's gone down to 0, so absolutely no problem there at all, and we have had a few issues again previously. Blue is the new, and then the grey sort of mountains behind them are, as I said, the first uninfected and recovered cows, and perfectly clear all the time, which is most of the herd, well, just over 50% I would say. So that gives you an idea of what's happening when. So have we got any seasonal patterns that we can see, or are things that's starting to turn the wrong direction? Now if we go back up to the top, health home just takes you back a step, but you can always use the arrow in the top left corner. So that was the graph. We then want to look at the cows related to that. So who are these 24 chronic cows, for example? So we go to cows greater than 200. And you can actually then see them. And they're put into their respective categories. So new, we've got 23 of those. We've got no firsts, we've got repeats, and we've got chronic. So let's have a look at these. So you are reading the table a little bit back to front in a way. So this is the previous cell count. So this was last month's. This is the current cell count for this recording. And we know because it's a chronic cow, they are both going to be over 200 in both instances. And we can see then whether they've been a bad chronic or a not so bad chronic, in the sense of, have we been hovering over the 200 mark, like this cow here, 201. So probably no issues at all, really. She's creeping up. She's at 373. Let's look into a bit more detail. So we've got lactation number, days postpartum, so that's your days in milk. How many times has she actually been high? So for her, 2 out of 8 recordings. So this month and last month, she was fine before. Previous lactation, so what's her history like? 1 out of 9. So this has never been a problem cow before, and she started off as a new case. So so she's suddenly become a chronic, so it's not too late to possibly do something about her. She's not a sort of established chronic, unlike some of the others. So this top cow here, 5008. Again, she's well into her lactation, 7 out of 7 high tests there. And she started off as a first, and we know from this herd data now that firsts are quite rare. So what's been going on with her before? Last lactation, again, no problems at all. So there's lots of history here, lots of information on each cow that you can then work through and see what's happening. Repeat ones, so why have they repeated? What's made them crop up again? And it's a different way of looking, rather than concentrating on your top 10 cell counts as you do every month, take a step back, just come into here and see, right, who are my sort of 300, 400 sort of level cows that I very often overlook simply because they're not shouting at me from the millionaires row, as it were. So it might be we can, as I say, do something about them before things really flare up and they move to the top of the list. So these new ones, so these are your sort of early warning cows. Yeah, previous cell count, as you would expect, no problem at all. That is how it's classified as a new. All of their readings are 1 out of however many tests that they've done. And then some of these, just slightly edging up here, but we've got a few worriers at this end as well. Now, this doesn't have a link to the individual cow, unfortunately, so you would have to go and out of here into Herd Companion and then have a look perhaps at the latest recording, find that cow using the filtering system, and then go and explore her in a bit more detail, and you'll be able to see, you know, other fertility events as well. So I will go back to the health home again. And have a look then at the graph for dry period. So this one has got, again, it's a graph over time, but we're looking at cell counts across the dry period. So what I'm meaning by that is, again, it's a high threshold of 200, and we're comparing the cell count before drying off to the cell count after calving. So across from one lactation to another, how have they fared during the dry period, in the sense of have they picked up a new infection? Have they cleared up themselves, having been high before? Were they never a problem in the first place? Have they cured, or have they, yeah, as I say, picked up something else? So we can see here red then is high to high. So they dried off high, they've calved in again, and they're high still. It could be a new infection. So this is what we need to explore, what's going on there. Low to high. So these are your sort of danger ones, really. Dried off perfectly fine, and then we've crept up a bit into the new lactation. Green is your high to low. So these are your cured cows. Might be self-cure, might be as a result of the dry cow therapy. And then low to low, that's your, you know, no problem at all cows. They've kept themselves quiet and absolutely no bother at all. And again, it's all about trends, isn't it? So we can see over 2 years, a little blip up here, August time last year. Can't remember back to last summer, but did we have a hot weather, or, you know, that sort of thing, that would make a general pattern there? And then we're kind of leveling off on the high to highs here. So again, we want to identify individual cows. So let's go back a step. So the graph's on this side, and then the reports for dry period are on this side. So that graph was anything dried off in the last 300 days. Now, when you come into the actual detail here, it defaults to cows calving in the last 70 days. So it's a different set of cows, or not as many. So if I make this 300 and then change, there we go, just let that refresh. So now we've got a decent amount of cows to concentrate on that have been dried off, you know, within that time frame. So low to high, these ones are of interest. We can see, again, it's a kind of a back to front table positioning. So the second to last cell count in the previous lactation, this is where they came from. Then before drying off, this was their cell count here. So these again are all low, as you would expect in this category. We then jump to this column, the first cell count in this lactation. So this is what they've started off with. The number in brackets is days in milk at that recording. And then the second lactation after that, second cell count after that first recording, you know, have we spotted them? Have they self-cured? What have we been able to sort out from there? So some of them, like this cow here, she's gone down to 11 now. So she's sorted herself out, or perhaps she was treated. You know, there's all that kind of thing. Knowing the local knowledge and the history of the herd and what you're doing to your cows, of course, will take out the guesswork on this, but I'm just surmising different scenarios. Whereas high to high, you know, we've dried off quite high here, so hopefully we've blitzed it with dry cow therapy, but possibly not, because we're still returning high for these ones. But it's 12 cows out of, you know, quite a few, so proportions are low. High to low then, those have sorted themselves out, which is ideal. Big chunk of them, and you can see low to low further down as well. Okay, whoops. So that's your dry period origin and the associated detail of those. There's another section on here as well I will show you if we go back to the home page. And that's the new infections. Okay, so what have we got going on here? If I bring it up a little bit. So there are 3 sets of cows. As you can see, we've got the lower threshold to 400. So this is cell count. So our threshold, we haven't changed, it's still set to 200. So you can change that at the very first page as you come in, and then that has an effect for this entire section. So 200 to 400 cells at their initial infection. So these are your new cows that we've classed as new previously at the initial infection. So this isn't now, this is going back in time a bit in terms of what's happened to them now. Have they, as you can see from the key, deteriorated? remain unchanged, improved, or totally cleared up. So this is our lower end of the spectrum. So 200 cells to 400 cells, you would hope that they would actually be able to clear up generally unaided, because, you know, say that level in the cell count list that we're always looking at, they're going to be nearer the bottom of the list, really, aren't they? So on the whole, this set of cows have cleared up pretty well. The middle section, so 400 to 800 cells at the previous infection, it's a bit more of an even split here. So some have improved and cleared up, but we've got a little bit more that have got worse. And then your upper level, so over that 800, well, none have deteriorated. So perhaps we've, you know, can't get any much worse than that possibly, but we've, you know, we've cleared up a few things on there. And then again, you can go back into the health home. So that graph is really about comparing, you know, over time. So it might be you want to grab that one maybe every quarter or so, just to see how things are changing. If you've had a change in routine, how has that affected the new infection improving? So we can see here then for the cows over the last 3 recording dates. So that's what that data refers to. So as of March, cell count at the latest recording and previous. So this was the March one. This is the April. Yeah, so evenly split. Some have cleared up and some have deteriorated, and so on. So I've finished ahead of time. Those are the main areas I wanted to show you, but let me I'll just carry on for a little minute. In the R report section, you can go to somatic cell count here. I won't click on that one just yet, because that's the same as we've been looking at production for SCC report. And also, as I've mentioned this before, some of the reports appear in more than one place on Herd Companion, simply because they're categorized in more than one area. So that is also the same as your Swift cell checker. So if I go to that one, you can then see, so another, as I say, different aspect again. So this is our general cell count report for any infected cows as of now, but we also have a bit of previous information as well. So this is just looking at your infected cows. Now what's going on here? We've had a bit of a explosion. So for the herd with high cell counts, you know, we're up and down quite almost consistently, aren't we? Every few months or so, we have a bit of a rise. So the lower range is set to 200. So the table below here, if I scroll down, will only show you up to, or any cow with an infection possibly, in terms of over 200 cells. So just to explain then, you can change your page size. If I make that all, then you've got the entire list. There we go. So we can scroll down, but as I said, it will stop at 200. So that's not every cow at that recording. If you want every cow at that recording, just change your threshold here, make it 0, apply, and also you've got what your threshold is going to be. So that one is relevant to this page only again. So there are lots of different settings for the threshold depending on what you're looking at. Now we've gone back to 20 per page again, but you can see now we've got 198 cows rather than just the top 68. Okay, so using that history, you know, you could then look up the individual cows of interest and see what's happened to them now relative to previous. And you've got a few historic examples to work back through. But yeah, the cell count summary areas. So just to reiterate there, production, SCC overview, and then these three here relate to the graphs and tables that we've been looking at already. But if you go into the overview, you can then look at all the graphs and the reports from within there. So yeah, just checking my list. That is actually what I wanted to cover today. So would be happy to answer any questions on anything on Herd Companion, really. I will just open up the line for Claire. There we go, Claire. Thank you. Any questions?
Hello, everybody. So we need some questions for Kath, please. Or you can put your hand up and we'll unmute you. We haven't got any yet.
No. Perhaps people are frantically typing.
You've explained everything so well, Kath. There's nothing to ask.
Here we go. I can see one. There we go, from Kate. Can you do an assessment for mastitis cases, please, or show us where that is? I certainly can, Kate. Absolutely. So mastitis is under, again, it's in more than one place. Eye reports, and then bottom left, if you come into mastitis here. And you can set your date range, so defaults to a year. And then any cow with a recorded case of mastitis and quarter is identified here. So you do have, sorry, that keeps jumping. You do have at the bottom then total number by quarter, so you can see if there's a particular quarter there. And what we can also do, which is quite nice, if I go back up to the top, with the grouping mechanism, if we group by mastitis date, so literally drag that header up into the blue area, you can then see how many cases you've had per month. So again, from a sort of seasonality perspective, interesting question. Does that tie in with the chronic graph that we were seeing earlier in terms of the little spikes that we're getting? So yeah, so hope that answers your question.
No more questions or hands? Oh, Kate said thank you.
You're very welcome. No, okay, well, if you're all done, that's absolutely fine. I will just finish off then. I mean, if you're in a bit of typing, just carry on and we will pick that up before I go. But yes, we are sort of coming to the end of the series here a little bit on the Herd Companion side. Now, all of the webinars, we record them, as you know, so you can watch them again, or if you miss it, catch up later. So under software on the NMR website, training, and then training webinars, and there's a few other topics on there, not just Herd Companion, so have a browse. Oops, there we go. Now I'm going to do another one next week, so I will keep going as long as people want me to. Would welcome your feedback on that. But yeah, basic summary of everything we've covered so far. So I'll have to pick out a few sort of best bits really. But by all means, give me a shout. I've got my details here. So yeah, next week's exactly the same time. We are training online Thursdays. That's our motto at the minute. But yeah, drop me an email if you would like to see some more, or maybe a bit more detail on what we've covered already. Happy to do that for you. So if you're all done, Claire,
Looks like it.
See anything? No? Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you all very much for attending. Oh, hang on. Oh. We've got one just come in. Oh, Tom. Hello, Tom. Fatty acid profile summaries. Yes, me personally, probably not so well, but they are all in there on Herd Companion. You've probably got access to it. Hold on, if I just go back to the site. We have, I'll get rid of that. That's right, I'm in control panel. No, it's on the right hand side somewhere. Under eye reports, yeah, eye reports, we've got fatty acid profiles here. Yeah, so I can always get a colleague to perhaps go through that on a webinar, or with you directly, Tom, if needs be. So yeah, we can cover that for you another time. No problem. I will make a note. Okay.
Tom said thank you.
Great, you're very welcome, Tom. Right, if that's all, then I shall leave you to it. Thank you all very much for attending, and do stay safe, and I will see you all next week, 1 o'clock. Thanks again. And thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Kath.